My name is Iwobi. I'm a professor at practice at the University of Wales, Trinity St. David, and I'm just delighted to speak to all the women of Wales today. I'm originally from Nigeria. I'm one of 5 children born to Professor Joseph Obona Uzo and Mrs. Susan Uzo, and just love life. I was always such a bubbly, energetic, troublesome youngster, and I remembered my mom saying that, I should have been a little tomboy. I'm a little tomboy when I was growing up, and always in dungarees and shorts and trousers and running about, and just wanting to be creative. My mum and dad were academics. My mother was a headmistress. In fact, she was one of the first headmistresses in Eastern Nigeria, a first female headmistresses. She was only about 23, 24. And my dad was a professor of crop science and, also highly academic family. And they raised us all 5 of us, to believe that we can achieve absolutely anything that we set our hearts upon. And despite difficulties, they trained us to be people who would put our hands to many things, as my mother would often say. Don't just depend on your 9-to-5 salary. What else can you do? What other skills can you do? Even though my dad was a lecturer and at the time the dean of the faculty of agriculture, he trained and was educated in America in University of Riverside in California. He came back to Nigeria with all those skills and created a couple of dramatic genetic products. One was something called the osensuka, which is a yellow pepper that's really fragrant. And the particular fragrance was so honored by the United Nations. And also he worked on putting the gene that makes the aubergine very firm outside into the red tomato in Nigeria to harden the skin. So through adversity, I have been raised to find your courage, not just from circumstances that life brings you, but circumstances that you encounter as you make your way. So coming to Wales, having studied law, I thought I would be able to immediately jump into a job. I went to the job centre in the early 90s. I've been here for just about 30 years, and I went into the job centre, and the woman asked me, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I've just finished, graduated and been called to the bar as a barrister, called to the Nigerian bar, and I'm also a qualified solicitor because it's a fused profession in Nigeria, and so I want to practice law." And she looked at me and said, "What's your name?" I said, "Uzo Amaka." "What?" I said, "Uzo Amaka." "Well, I can't say that name." "Do you have an English name?" I said, "Well, I do have an English name, but I don't use it really." "Well, what's your English name?" I said, "Linda." "Oh, you better be a Linda because no one can say your name here." "Okay. So what do you want to achieve then? What do you want to do? What jobs?" I said, "Well, I'd like to practice law, maybe criminal law, civil law. Can you point me in the right direction?" And she looked me straight in the eye and said, "You will never get a job in the legal profession in Wales because you're black." And that was my first encounter with racism and what that feels like. I was so shocked. My jaw dropped. I had never ever heard that anybody could be so disadvantaged. Anybody I know personally. I mean, you read about Martin Luther King Jr., you read about Mandela, you read about civil rights movement, but you think that's happening somewhere else. But nobody that I knew personally had experienced anything, especially because my mother-in-law is a white English woman who married a black Nigerian, and she'd always had a lovely welcome in Nigeria. So I really was shocked by what had happened to me, and then began to understand and think carefully about the context of racism. So I couldn't get a job in the legal profession. My first job in Wales was selling toys in Toys R Us, and from 9 a.m., 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., £2.40 an hour. And I got a night shift job packing crisps in Walker's factory, and it was from about 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That was my life. It was really, really hard. And I remembered always being assigned to something they called VAT duty. And VAT duty was where you get given this massive tureen that contains all the greasy, gungy sort of flavorings of the crisps. And myself and another black woman, the only two black people in that factory, would always be assigned into the VAT duty. So it's really, really the beginning of understanding that the pigmentation of your skin can define how you're treated. And having that clear understanding prepares you to prepare yourself for pain and hurt and disappointment and disadvantage and discrimination, racism and prejudice, all those things that you probably never thought you'd encounter. Years later, I then got my first teaching job, law lecturing job, at the Swansea Law School. I taught law for 9 years, £27 an hour. What a difference in pay. And I also set up the African Community Centre in Wales because I thought I wanted to see other Africans who were here. Very few of us then. You didn't have a very diverse university life. My two children were the only black children in the whole school, and just the kind of racism and difficulties they faced was really traumatizing. It seems very similar to me as a young person going to my head teacher and saying, I'll set up a whole school choir. Well, I came to Wales, nothing changed much, and I set up that charity, which was in 2003. And we started with 4, and today we have 537 members based in this building, actually in the Swansea Grand Theatre. So working through a variety of difficulties, I saw an advert. It was sent to me by one of my local Welsh friends to apply to become no, it was actually before that one, was a secondment opportunity to the Home Office to work in a very high-level job as an advisor and a scrutinizer of 43 police forces in the UK on how well they're implementing the race equality plan and how well they were implementing the Stephen Lawrence recommendations after Stephen Lawrence was killed. I didn't think I'd get it, but I thought, try. And I'm married to the most amazing man in the world. My first mentor, I would say, probably, apart from my parents, my siblings, my sisters, and my brothers. Andrew has been honestly my rock, apart from God. Thank you, God. And he said to me, go for it. What's the worst can happen? They say no, you can live with a no, but never live with not trying. So I went off to the Home Office. I applied for this job. I was shortlisted, and surprise, surprise, following a Special Forces security vetting, I had a call 3 months later when I'd forgotten I even did the interview, saying, gosh, you've been successful, you were absolutely brilliant. We're going to pay for you to relocate to London and everything. Oh, I thought, I can't relocate to London, I'll come and go. So I lived in Novotel, working for the Association of Chief Police Officers called ACPO. I'm working to the 43 police forces in the UK on a tripartite partnership called the Police National Diversity Team. It was one of the most challenging jobs I've ever had to do, because I had to go and visit all the forces across the piece to look at their work and scrutinize their responses. And it was the Commission for Racial Equality that was leading that inquiry. Excuse me. And it was very striking because Little did I know that a year later, thanks to a Welsh friend of mine who saw the job of commissioner to the Commission for Racial Equality and said, "This has got your name all over it, apply for it." And I applied. I was interviewed by Trevor Phillips, who was the then chair of the Commission, and minister from the Tony Blair's cabinet, because the Prime Minister makes the appointment, well, the Home Secretary makes the appointment. So I was successful, and I was just in shock how from going to my job in the Workers' Factory and the Toys R Us, today I'm sitting in Viennese parliamentary session talking about how the UK implemented their Race Relations Act. I'm walking into the Westminster Palace on the day of the bicentenary edition of the slave trade, and I'm standing on the spot that William Wilberforce stood to declare the speech about the emancipation of enslaved Africans like me. And it was absolutely mind-blowing, addressing members of the House of Lords and the House of Parliament and the joint houses through this Commission's event, and just having the opportunity to serve nationally, to challenge organizations to promote race equality. And that is the important thing, is not what happens to you, is your ability to react to it appropriately in a measured manner, and to be careful and to be really clear that you're not going to do anything to let your own self down. You owe yourself a duty to not allow yourself to be crushed by the circumstances that you face. It's not easy. It's often easier to give up and not bother. But what is life if not to be lived? And Martin Luther King Jr. said that an individual has never truly lived until they step outside of the narrow confines of their own individuality to embrace the broader concerns of humanity. And in my own charity and humanitarian work, that has been ultimately right. You cannot be free until you've ensured the freedom of those around you. So you cannot be free when all the people around you remain in chains. So I'm a very, very strong Black woman, and it's been great to be part of Black Lives Matter, and to say that, when Black lives matter, all lives will truly matter. When Asian lives matter, when Gypsy lives matter, when Eastern Europeans' lives matter, when Asian people's, when Turkish people's lives matter, then we all can say all human lives matter. So thank you for interviewing me.